Shello, humans! We've often talked about how the Nick Bo era ruined Winx Club, but I think it started earlier than that. It actually started as early as Season 4, which is an absolute mess. The villains are boring losers, the writing is terrible, it's insanely juvenile, the characters are flanderized, plot points go nowhere, and it just feels like something that you could have on in the background because very little actually happens. While it's not as awful as what came afterwards, that's not a high bar. The bar is in Tartarus. It feels like a fan fiction, and not in a good way like Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time. This is first time middle schooler bad fanfiction that the writer looks back on years later with disdain and embarrassment. But I'm not going to talk about Season 4 as a whole, but rather one of the reasons why it doesn't work, and that's the fairy of animals herself, Roxy. In this video, I'll be going over why this character failed at being a new addition to the Winx Club lineup and failed as a character in general. Before we begin, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and if you disagree, that's fine. Just don't be up about it. Now, without any further delay, let's dive right on in. When adding a new character to an already established lineup, it can be very tricky. You need to make sure that they feel like an integral part of the group and establish new relationships that feel genuine. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. Aisha was introduced in Season 2 and became so important to the group that when you watch Season 1, it feels naked without her. She struggled to fit into this already established group due to her inexperience with friendship and being isolated, but she got there, and that was the point. She also had a very distinct personality, with her being rebellious, strong-willed, a dancer, and athletic without being a gym rat, as well as her powers being awesome with being water-based, but not just strictly water. She's honestly my favorite member of Winx Club, and would be my favorite character in the show if it wasn't for Icy. So it's absolutely possible to make a new character work. However, when it comes to Roxy, that's not really the case. Her personality feels so underdeveloped to the point where she feels more like a collection of traits rather than a fully realized character. She loves animals, doesn't want to be a fairy and leave Gardenia, cares about her father, doesn't like being told that you can only have one fairy animal pet, aka the Toyetic Nightmares, and I guess has a bit of a temper. She has traits, but her personality doesn't feel fully formed. This is one of the reasons why you can tell Season 4 was made due to capitalism. They didn't really take the time to put much thought into her personality. She's not really a character, but rather a self-insert for the audience to imagine themselves as. She's a poorly written fanfic OC. This makes her especially pathetic due to how she's supposed to be the 7th Winx, but she doesn't really register next to the other girls. The other girls have distinct personalities that are different from each other, which led to interesting group dynamics. Bloom is a cinnamon roll with a fiery temper and is the heart of the group. Stella is the unfiltered fashionista diva. Flora is a flower child and a gentle soul while still having a backbone. Musa is a snarky tomboy. Tekna is the group nerd and very autistic coded. And Aisha is rebellious and headstrong. These different personalities help make the friendship and interactions fun. It was the heart of the show. Because Roxy doesn't really have her own distinct identity, she doesn't really get any interesting interactions with the other Winx. She mostly just gets annoyed at Stella sometimes and acts as Bloom's little protege where Bloom ends up spoon-feeding her forced morals. Plus, with her being younger than the Winx, she feels more like a little sister acting like a tag-along to her older sister and her friends that tolerate her. Not to mention that it gives a power imbalance. Where Aisha was the same age as the other girls and therefore was on more equal footing with them, Roxy is clearly younger. The Winx at this point have graduated from Althea and are adults, whereas Roxy is still early high school age. So she can't feel like a real member because she's not on equal footing as the others. It could have worked, but she never feels active in the plot. I sometimes forgot her existence as I was watching the season because she has so little involvement and is about as memorable as Disney's dinosaur movie. Another reason that Roxy lacks her own unique identity is not only her half-baked quote-unquote personality, but also her uninspired design. When my wife saw Roxy for the first time, she asked when Tekna got a little sister. It's not hard to see why anyone would confuse her for Tekna's little sister. Both are super pale with light pink lips and magenta pink hair. This is such a confusing choice. Even when ignoring the fact that she stole Tekna's color palette, did we really need to have another white girl in the club when 3 out of 6 of the girls were already white? I've seen people race bend her to make her Southeast Asian or South Asian. They could have also made her Middle Eastern, Polynesian, or a mixed race. I personally would have made her Native American. Not only is that a very underrepresented group, but her hair could have been jet black, which could have distinguished itself from Musa's black hair with blue undertones. Or is it just blue? Not to mention, they could have had a lot more fun with her fairy form. Granted, they would need to do research to be respectful in the design without making her fairy form come off as an offensive stereotype. Speaking of her fairy form, not only did she steal Tekna's pink hair and pale skin, she also stole Aisha's signature color. This is why Aisha's Believix is turquoise blue rather than her usual green. Personally, I think Roxy's color should have been yellow with green accents so that Bloom and Aisha wouldn't have to share the color blue, and it's a color that isn't already in the Winx Club lineup. Along with that, her fairy form is rather confusing. Her outfit looks like a base Winx outfit, and her hair isn't given an intricate hairstyle, but her shoes and wings make her look like a Believix fairy. But Bloom made it clear that Roxy isn't a Believix fairy when the girl is sidelined for a mission, which we'll get to later. Obviously, this was done so she could fit in with the others in toy sales, but it makes no sense. Plus, should the Earth Fairies' power forms even be the same as the ones from the Magic Dimension? We've seen that the Earth Fairies don't have enchantix, so it would make more sense if they had their own unique form that was different from the other fairies. As for her civilian form, it's a visual representation of how Roxy lacks her own unique identity. I guess it's outdoorsy, girl next door, and tomboyish, but it feels like a random one-time outfit that Bloom or Aisha would wear. Nothing about it says much about Roxy or makes her unique from the other girls other than how unmemorable she is. I heard that there were plans to make her more alternative or even goth. I don't know how reliable that source is, but I honestly wish that was the direction they had gone with. Not only would she stand out more in the group and be given more of her own identity, it would have been unique in Winx Club in general. The fairies never have an alternative or gothic look with the exception of Murda, but she was originally a witch. This could have helped develop her personality and lead to interesting dynamics with the girls. She could have been aloof but loud when it came to things that she was passionate about, isolate herself except with animals, have her be snarky and only feel comfortable around animals. They could have even made her a goth that was also an activist, especially when it came to animal cruelty. After all, the gothic and alternative girls deserve rep as well. Before anyone says that a goth character wouldn't wear yellow, there are goths that still wear yellow. If they didn't want to do that, they could have also made her a timid and soft-spoken preppy girl. Anything to help make her more distinctive instead of criminally generic and horribly unmemorable. Roxy's powers aren't really the most interesting with spells. Granted, you could argue that she's new to this, and therefore isn't going to know a lot of spells, but Bloom accomplished a lot more when she became a fairy. And it didn't take her so flippin' long to finally transform. We don't see Roxy transform until halfway through the season, which is way too long. But Roxy's powers tend to only be used to calm down animals and let the animals talk in that one episode, but that's it. She very rarely uses her powers for offensive attacks, which makes her feel rather useless. This adds to what makes her feel like a pointless tag-along. Bloom at least tried to fight when she was inexperienced. She even lost her first battle she ever fought, but she still put up a good fight. Roxy never gets to really fight and usually has to depend on the others to save the day. Part of this is because her powers don't really lend themselves a lot to offensive attacks without using mind control on animals, which I'm pretty sure she'd be against. Although the Winx have no problem with brainwashing people this season. I feel like she could have used spells that grant her traits of animals like the speed of a cheetah, strength of an elephant, maybe create animal spirits of groups like a pack of wolves or a pride of lions to attack, or shrink herself to the size of an ant. That would at least be something because they gave her nothing. This makes her feel even more sidelined than she already was because it makes her feel less like she's part of the team and more like a random obligation the Winx have to babysit or tell to stay home. Roxy is the Fairy of Thieves, because not only did she steal Tekna's hair and skin color and Aisha's signature color, she also stole Bloom's backstory. An Earth girl that learns that she's a fairy as a teenager, is raised by a human, gets her fairy form from conflict from the main villains, has a mysterious woman trying to help her along her journey. It turns out this mysterious woman is a relative, and it turns out she's a princess. Sound familiar? It worked with Bloom, but it feels like a lazy retread here. Personally, I think it would have been more unique and interesting if she was born to two random commoners that managed to help her escape and she was adopted by Klaus. It would be a subversion of the Lost Princess storyline with her just being a random peasant that was lucky to escape the villains. It would give her more of an imposter syndrome with why she was saved over someone of higher importance. But no, let's just do a poorly written version of Bloom's backstory. Also, we don't really get to see what her life is like on Earth to the point where she wouldn't want to leave to go to Althea. We don't see if she has any friends that aren't animals. She claims she does, but we never really see them. She just has animals and her father. You'd think that she wanted to see what the animals are like in the magical dimension. Plus, for someone who protested so much, she sure changed her mind quickly. Character motivation? Who needs that when you got contrived relationship drama and pointless fluff? You can tell that they really didn't put much thought into this season or into Roxy as a character. After season 4, Roxy just mattered even less. She's not allowed to help in the battle of the season 5 premiere and just disappears into the background after the beginning of episode 3. She gets a bit more ado in season 6, but not much. She doesn't even get to have the 7th Mythic Swan because she matters so little. They attempt to make her more active in season 7, with it being the season about animals, but that's short-lived. She doesn't gain the Poseidon Awful Butterflicks, and loses her stone of memory to the lamest villain in all of Winx Club. All she really does is deliver news to the Wings with her plot birds. Nothing more, so she becomes even more sidelined and useless than she already was. This isn't surprising since they wanted to make the girls quietly 16 again, and Roxy got in the way of that. But it's also because they probably knew that 7 main characters would have been too much to focus on, especially since the main 6 struggled to get equal attention post season 3 as it is. But I feel like this was inevitable because Roxy wasn't that compelling of a character to begin with. She was never a character, but rather just a poorly written fanfic self-insert that didn't have her own identity or goals. I know she has her fans, but I also know a lot of people don't care for her, especially from people that I talk to in the Unicorn Award Discord server, particularly a certain Technistan, you know who you are, because she was just a pointless addition that never mattered. She doesn't resonate with people, and those who love her tend to do so because they love the idea of the potential she had and the headcanons that they have about her rather than the character herself. She never became an interesting character in her own right, just a useless tag-along. So it's no surprise that she faded into obscurity where she belongs. Just another reason to ignore anything that comes after the first 3 seasons and Secret of the Lost Kingdom. And that's why Roxy failed. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with my thoughts? What are your thoughts on Roxy? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to help my channel take off so I can do this as a full-time job, which I would really appreciate. If you would like to show some extra support, you can send me money through the YouTube Super Thanks. You can also check out my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the See ya!